Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker, and with me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman. And welcome to, yet again, another special edition of the Green Flag. We've got a very fun one in store for you guys today. I know it just flipped over the calendar, and we're into 2021, but we're looking 12 months ahead, basically, into 2022. We're going to be looking ahead to the NASCAR Cup Series driver lineups and on the Formula One side of things as well. Who are they going to be racing for their respective teams? So very, very fun episode in store for today's episode. There could be how right, how wrong. We're usually pretty wrong on these predictions. We're going to find out in a matter of moments. We got some news and stuff that is quite small, but we will touch on it nonetheless before we get into that portion of the episode. But before we get into all that, how are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm very excited for this one because last year we did like a mid-season, silly season predictions one, and we'll do that again this year, of course, but it's always best to get out ahead of everybody. And last year there was just so much all season long, whether it was right at the beginning of the year when F1 decided to just shake up their entire grid before even the first race, or even Ryan Blaney re-signing early on and everything on. So we're getting out ahead of the 8 ball on this one. We're getting it ahead of before any teams can go out and announce stuff, but I guess technically not, because Hendrick already announced what he was doing last year for next year. But anyways, outside of that one, we're getting ahead of everything, which is going to be fun to look back on in 12 months and see how wrong we are.
Exactly. And, we are looking ahead. So far, we still have announcements for this upcoming season yet to be had. So there is some craziness that we're doing here. We're taking a big risk to see how bad and how wrong we are. But it is going to be fun nonetheless. So stay tuned for that a little bit later on. But first, we can talk a little bit about what's coming up for the 2021 NASCAR season. And that starts with Jordan Anderson.
That's weird to say. I'm still not used to that.
I know. It is a little bit weird. It starts with Jordan Anderson for today's episode, and he's going to be racing full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. A bit of a bombshell for his side of things.
So, yeah.
It's quite the revelation here. This man has been really integrated in the truck series, has been a fan favorite just because of his social media presence, helping out with other YouTubers and stuff like that, and just being such a welcoming part of the NASCAR community on the driver's side of things. And he's been struggling for sponsorship a little bit on the truck series side of things. It's always kind of up in the air before the season starts, how many races he will run, if it's full-time, part-time, whatever the case may be. But the fact that he's moving up to the next level in the NASCAR trio of series, to the Xfinity Series with full-time sponsorship, and he's going to be running for Rookie of the Year honors as well. So that's very, very cool for him.
A couple of those announced today.
Exactly. And the team has bought cars from RCR, so a very reputable source, I'd say, for cars in the Xfinity Series. And they will have ECR engines as well. So quite the backing here for Jordan Anderson to go out there and compete for Rookie of the Year honors this upcoming season. Artie Hare, if I am pronouncing that correctly, will serve as the crew chief. We'll go with that. Apologies if it is wrong, but he's going to be serving as the crew chief for Jordan Anderson for this upcoming season. And on the truck series side of things, Jordan Anderson Racing will continue to run a truck series program with select drivers over the course of the season. Jordan Anderson will actually open the season for his own team. You would think so in the Daytona race for the truck series on Friday night in a couple of weeks' time, and he finished second last year in the race. So
probably should have won the damn thing.
He probably should have. So I can see why he'd want to go back for redemption and try and get that trophy in the truck series. But a very fan-friendly kind of story here, Kyle. It's one that we're all a fan of. So what do you make of the move for Jordan Anderson moving up to the Xfinity Series for this season?
Yeah, this one's awesome. And it's one that kind of makes sense as well when you look at the grand scheme of things, because a lot of us think of it as truck series and then a tier up is Xfinity and then a tier up is Cup series. But really, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, there's kind of trucks and Xfinity are essentially on the same level. And then you go up to Cup. Trucks is kind of a different thing. It's not really on that same kind of trajectory to Cup, and we've seen that this year with moves like John Hunter Nemechek going back down to the Cup, to the Truck Series, stuff like that. But when you look at the level of competition in the Truck Series right now, it is massive. You've got 15 trucks that can go out and win if it's the right day for their organization, and compare that to Xfinity, and you've got probably 10 or 11 that are probably on that same level. So when you look at that, the mid-pack as well in Xfinity is much, much tighter, and there's a lot more of kind of that mid-pack in Xfinity. So if you're somebody like Jordan Anderson, who are kind of stuck in the middle there in the truck series, I love this move, going up and going Xfinity Racing here. Try and battle for some top 10 finishes potentially over the course of the year. And when you mention buying cars from RCR, getting ECR engines, like those are some pretty big names there. And so when you look at it, I don't know what the expectation level will be in year one. But I'm excited to see how they progress over the season because, as you mentioned, Jordan Anderson, he's a fan favorite. He's been pretty popular on social media, whether it's going on people's YouTube channels or just on his own Twitter and everything like that. So it's great to see somebody who's such a fan favorite get that season-long sponsorship, go up to Xfinity and try something new a little bit going into next year, or I guess this year technically now.
Yeah, that is crazy to say. But yeah, this is a very, very cool move, I'd say. Just adding to that Xfinity Series midfield battle. It's going to be absolutely insane this upcoming season. We've got so many great cars, so many great drivers, caliber drivers that we've seen in other series be very successful, and they just haven't quite found that top tier ride in the Xfinity Series, but they're making the best of what they have in the kind of mid-pack range. And if they can sneak some top 10s, if the top guys falter here and there throughout the season, it's going to be a great aspect to the Xfinity Series that hopefully the broadcasting side of things will cover, and it won't be so top heavy because we have some really intriguing stuff on the midfield side of things.
So bad in Xfinity. Like they focus so heavily on those top 10 and whatever. And yeah, I guess that makes sense, but you've got so many great stories and great battles in the mid pack. The one thing that I love this year is, especially with their uptick in performance for Brandon Brown there. And I know this is kind of going off on a tangent, but how often they brought up his name and showed him and talked about his story this season. I want more of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm hoping going into this year with so many different fun storylines in kind of that mid pack in Xfinity that they'll go out and kind of showcase them more, whether that's actually showing on track battles or just kind of telling these stories. But that's my little broadcasting tangent for the day.
No, I totally agree. And when the slogan for the series is "Names are made here," it's not just the top guys that are
make those names. Yeah,
exactly. So we have to try and incorporate everybody that's in the Xfinity Series field, especially some of these guys that are taking a risk on themselves here, taking a chance on themselves and coming up to the Xfinity Series, someone like Jordan Anderson here. So very, very exciting stuff here from Jordan Anderson and just that entire team. And I'm happy that they're still continuing on that truck series side of things as well, because they can have their races, they can have their moments here and there, most likely on the super speedways.
They're always a surprise threat at the super speedways. We saw that last year at Daytona, but they're always a top 10 finisher at those super speedway races, less so on the mile and a halves and stuff. But then again, as I mentioned, the level of competition in the truck series is crazy high. So it's difficult for those mid-pack guys to break through when there's so many there. Go out and give Xfinity a shot.
Exactly. Very, very cool stuff there from Jordan Anderson, excuse me, from today's news. We can move on to the Xfinity Series as well here, staying in that series. It's been quite the busy news day for some of these mid-pack teams, and that does not stop here with Alex Labbe. He will be returning to DGM Racing to drive the number 36, our Canadian boy, with the hopes of running the entire Xfinity Series schedule. That's not entirely confirmed. They got the front half of the season with sponsorship. They're just working on the back half, so hopefully that does come to fruition as the season moves on. They can put some sponsors on that car, and he has the funding to remain in the Xfinity Series, and hopefully he can run at the Wet Robo race in the October race if it happens for a duo, because we saw how well he did in this past one.
He was really good. Yeah.
So very happy to see that Alex Labbe is going to be back. He's been in the NASCAR Pinty Series now, NASCAR Canadian Tire Series as it used to be. He was really, really good in that series, and then he made the jump over to the Xfinity Series and has had he's passed with flying colors, I'd say. He's done the job he can with the equipment that he has, and on the road courses, he's been especially impressive. So very, very happy to see that Alex Labbe is going to be back in the Xfinity Series this season, Kyle.
Yeah, it's great to see. And DGM as a whole looking to do some interesting things this year, because they've got Alex Labbe full-time, hopefully, for this season. And then you've got Josh Williams as well there back again. So keeping that driver lineup going to this season, which I'm sure will help the familiarity there. But yeah, as you mentioned, Alex Labbe, he's got that prowess on the road courses, and of course, based off of all the moves that NASCAR has been making towards that, that's only going to help him more and more. They had some really strong runs last year, picking out a handful of top 10s. Hell, Alex Labbe was in one of those Dash for Cashes at one point after a fantastic finish at Talladega, I think it was. So just a fantastic year for Alex Labbe. Was, I think, 14th in points at the end of the year, which is a very strong season for somebody like DGM and for himself. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 top 10s last year, which is very, very good for them. 3 on the super speedways, picking 1 up at Indy on the road course. And of course, the fantastic race of the year, at least for myself, the wet Roval, where he finished in the top 5. So excited to see him back again next year. That Canadian flavor, once again, the Canadian team, the Canadian driver there with DG and Mario Gosselin, of course. So excited to see them return in this capacity for this upcoming season.
Absolutely. Very, very excited to see another Canadian represented once again on the NASCAR side of things. He may push for that nomination for Canadian Driver of the Year this year if he keeps up that pace. We'll see in a year's time if he does make that short list of Canadian drivers. Lance Stroll, obviously the winner of this past year. So we'll see if Alex Lebay can add his name to that list in 2021. We move on to the other side of the Xfinity Series as well. Here we stay there once again. Ryan Vargas, a very, very deserving candidate here. He's going to be driving full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for JD Motorsports in the number 6 car, a number he's very familiar with from this past season, obviously getting that TikTok paint scheme. Kyle has a shirt of him with
I don't know why I didn't wear it.
Don't worry. I wasn't even going to point it out. But
No. That was my bad. I completely whiffed on that one. But
it would be the day to do it if you were going to do it. But we'll say that maybe for a Ryan Vargas top 10, top 20, that's what made you get the shirt in the first place. So we'll see if he can recreate that sooner rather than later, and we'll see that TikTok shirt make its reappearance on the green flag here. But he's going to be competing for Rookie of the Year honors as well, along with Jordan Anderson there. So we'll see who comes out on top between those guys. And Ryan Vargas, a fan favorite as well here. Has done great things on his part-time schedule. When he's gotten the chances, he's had great finishes here and there, has had some bad luck at times as well when he's gotten those opportunities, but people still keep showing faith in him, and he's deserving of that, absolutely. So what do you make of the opportunity that Ryan Vargas is getting here with JD Motorsports? A very good, solid midfield team here in the Xfinity Series.
Oh, you gotta love it. Like Ryan Vargas has easily become one of the bigger social media stars from NASCAR, and it's been great to see him propel his career forwards because of it as well and get these opportunities. And it's crazy to think that last year he was only running a couple of races for JD Motorsports, and then all of a sudden TikTok of all people hop on board to finish off the year. He gets a top 10 for crying out loud in that mix as well, and parlays all of that into a full-time ride this season with one of the stronger teams in the mid-pack in the Xfinity Series. Just think back a few years ago, Ross Chastain was with this team, Landon Castle previously with this team, now back with this team. And those are guys, obviously Ross Chastain now up with Chip Ganassi Racing, but they've had a handful of guys come through that team that have gone on to at least run in Cup at some point in their careers or do something more. So it's a very good stepping stone team as well, but it's great for him to get that full-time opportunity here and really start to showcase what he's got in terms of potential and current ability. And one thing that we made note of last time when it comes to JD Motorsports and their driver lineups and everything with Landon Castle being announced with the 4 was the fact that they had 3 full-time drivers there. And I thought that maybe they would have the 6-speed rotation, but they're going with Ryan Vargas full-time, which means 4 full-time drivers for JD Motorsports. And compare that to last season when they had 9 drivers for their 4 cars throughout the entire season. Jeffrey Earnhardt was there last year a little bit. Ryan Vargas, of course, was there a little bit last year. Colby Howard ran a majority of races for them last year, and then bringing back Landon Castle to the fold. So excited for JD Motorsports this year because we're not going to have that rotation. We're going to have that full-time battle, which is going to be great as well for the points because we'll actually have some of that mid-pack points battles, which we kind of miss out on a little bit in Xfinity when people run 2/3 of the season or third or all that kind of stuff. We've got full-time DGM stuff. We've got full-time JD Motorsports stuff. So it's going to be a very, very fun mid-pack. We're adding Jordan Anderson to it as well. Xfinity Series is looking pretty hot right now. I'm not going to lie.
Our Motorsports with Brett Moffitt as well.
Exactly. And they've got a second entry as well.
Exactly. So, Jeremy Clements, we can't forget about him as well in there. Brandon Brown is going to be within that mix as well.
Tommy Joe, hopefully uptick as well.
There's some pretty interesting names
some fun
there.
Stuff, man.
It is very fun. Very happy for Ryan Vargas getting some security over there as an organization as a whole for JD Motorsports. So happy to see that security, like I said. And just as Kyle said as well, with the standings, we see these guys getting like half the points of what they could possibly get if they ran a full-time schedule. We're going to see that now. It's going to be a very compact midfield battle. Every race is going to mean something now because funding for next year as well with the results. It's just going to be a massive, massive battle to keep your eye on. Not just the front guys, because we're getting some very intriguing names on the front side of things for Xfinity as well. It's going to be more spread out, I'd say, in terms of competitiveness and who wins races, because we don't have that big name apart from Austin Cindric, of course, Justin Allgaier. Those two are the ones that really pop out at you. But besides that, you've got a pretty even mix across the board on the top side of things. And then we've got these midfield guys that can go in there and have a banger of a race here and there as well to try and get in the mix. So very, very exciting Xfinity Series season. We were so happy about the Truck Series and what we've seen. The Xfinity Series is becoming equally as exciting as that now. So it's pretty crazy to say that. We didn't think about that even a month's time ago, but now over the past month, we've seen a lot of announcements in the NASCAR Xfinity Series to really liven that series up. Hopefully some names are made there this upcoming season. We move on to one of the last little bits of notes before we get into the major part of today's episode. We go down to the Truck Series for this one. A veteran of that series, Timothy Peters, is making a return full-time to the Truck Series for a new team in Rackley W.A.R. I'm not sure exactly what those stand for. It's a new team in the Truck Series here, going to be driving the number 25. Chad Kendrick will be the crew chief. Team is owned by Willie Allen and Curtis Sutton. That's the entire press release that kind of really came out today. So Timothy Peters, someone I grew up really watching, the likes of Mike Skinner, Johnny Benson, Ron Hornaday. Timothy Peters was just right in that mix with those guys. Red Horse Racing was his stable in the number 17 truck for many, many years. And then when that truck team kind of dissipated in thin air, it seemed like it happened all relatively quickly, and he was kind of left on the sidelines, and he hasn't really found that full-time entry, whether he wants to or not over the past couple of seasons. I don't know, but he has been making part-time appearances, a race here or there over the past couple of seasons, showing that he's still interested in the sport. In what capacity? We found out today he wants to come back full-time. So very, very cool to see Timothy Peters, someone that Matt Crafton has been rivals with for a couple of times over his career as well. So just adding another veteran to the sport. Johnny Sauter is very familiar with him. So we have a nice mix of youth and veterans in the Truck Series for this upcoming season, and Timothy Peters adds his name to that list. So what do you think of Timothy Peters and this new team in the Truck Series as well, Kyle?
Yeah, this was a bit of a surprising one, eh? Like, we knew this team was coming, or at least there had been rumors about it. We didn't know whether it would be limited or full-time, but to get a name like Timothy Peters as well, that's a pretty solid get for a team like that who's brand new and doesn't have really much history as being like a team that is maybe run part-time or anything like that. Like, this is a brand new organization. We don't know what to expect from them. And to go out and get somebody like Timothy Peters, who has been a championship contender in this series in the past, is very impressive. Last seen him full-time in 2016. So it's been a while now. It's coming up on 5 years since he last went full-time. And we saw him make that cameo with Stuart Friesen's team there at Texas, I think it was, that he missed while doing a dirt race and finished in the top
Texas
10
or not, but yeah.
So it's something. Oh, Kansas, I think.
Yeah, it was Kansas. Yes.
It wasn't because Friesen was
Texas,
back in Texas.
Texas, he got taken out by Sauter.
Yeah, that's right. So that's why I was remembering. There was something.
The 52 had something happen at Texas.
Yeah, I was like, there was something. What was it? Oh, yeah, he got taken. Well, to be fair, everyone got taken out by Johnny Sauter at some point this year. But sorry. But no, it's great to see Timothy Peters back. It's a name from kind of an era that's kind of starting to leave the sport a little bit there, especially in the Truck Series as it gets younger and younger and younger. So excited to see what he can do this year. Obviously, with the top 10 at Kansas shows that he's still got some speed in him. So excited to see what this new team and Peters can do this year in the ultra competitive Truck Series.
Yeah, I don't know what the expectations are for this team and Timothy
no
Peters
clue.
this year.
Literally none.
There's nothing really to go off of for this team.
Yeah.
Brand new. Timothy Peters, he's going to try and get the most out of the truck as much as possible every single race.
Course.
So we'll leave it at that for Timothy Peters. It's going to be an interesting debut for at Daytona in a couple of weeks. And then when we get onto the mile and a half, even the dirt later on in Knoxville too, we'll see how the team fares. Maybe they can get a surprise result or two throughout the season. So wishing them the best in the Truck Series in their inaugural season. Last little bit of news and notes before we move on. We've got Brad Keselowski with a potential new sponsor sighting. It was on NASCAR Reddit today on Twitter. So it seems like he's switching to Keystone Light. Very familiar with the Blue Deuce when Miller Lite was the main sponsor for that car, when he made kind of his Penske debut and whatnot back in 2011. And when he got the full-time really going with Penske in 2011, he was racing there for a couple of seasons in the 12 car. But yeah, he was with Miller Lite. Now he's going to the competitor in Keystone Light. Maybe they can bring back the Blue Deuce here or there some point in time, because it was a great paint scheme. I'm not a big Brad Keselowski guy, as many people would assume. But I'll give it to him on the paint scheme. I did like the Miller Lite scheme. So hopefully that Keystone Light scheme that was kind of teased on the kind of, I guess, advertisement that was in an alcohol store or drug store, whatever it was, it does actually come up on the track this season, because it did look pretty sporty. I'm not going to lie. I may have to try and get a 164 skill diecast of that maybe along the season. So we'll see if that comes out. But Brad Keselowski potentially switching to a new beer sponsor. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but it is an interesting kind of tidbit. Yeah,
it's just more the sad reality going into this season that the two won't have Miller Lite on it or anything like that, because it's been so long. It's synonymous with Penske and that number, yeah. But at least they're getting a replacement there in terms of getting that beer sponsorship and whatnot. Because one thing that we kind of miss now in NASCAR is we don't have that many sponsor rivalries anymore. When you look at it, like
Budweiser and Miller Lite was always a great one.
And Budweiser versus Miller Lite is like the classic one that you think of. So we don't have a lot of those. So hopefully we can get some more kind of going into the future here, because in addition to all like the sponsorship activation and everything like that, blah, 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 marketing stuff, the best part about it is the fact that you can go on track and you can see a Budweiser car versus a Miller Lite car or whatever beer, and who comes out on top, stuff like that. And the sponsors actually care about that kind of stuff too. So it's good to see that they're at least keeping some semblance of that, and maybe we can see some kind of rivalries or anything like that develop from there. But there's my second tangent of the day.
Well, that we've seen it in Formula One, Rich Energy versus Red Bull. Oh yeah, that was a great rivalry. Hey,
that's a banger.
Boy, what a time that was. But yeah, we'll see if that sponsorship does come to fruition. Nothing's been officially confirmed, but that sighting was out there. So yeah, most likely it is out there. He's wearing the Keystone Light fire suit, so I don't think that they were taking that by accident.
Unless it's a great Photoshop from somebody at a random beer store. So.
Exactly. We'll see if that is the case, but imagine to see Keystone Light on the number 2 car later on this season at some point in time. NASCAR also released its stage lengths for this upcoming season as well. So I think the main thing I really noticed was the laps for the Bristol Dirt Race, 250 laps for that event. So we'll see how that event transpires.
It's a lot of laps.
Yep.
A lot of laps.
It's a lot of laps on dirt, and they are putting the dirt down at Bristol as well. We've seen some images come out on their social media channel. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Oh God, I don't
The one thing I'm excited for that weekend is the actual dirt cars that'll be there, because that'll be fun. Like I don't remember. I think they've got like late mod. I don't think they have sprint or anything like that going. But
I wish they did.
God, those would be so good. But I don't remember exactly the lineup for the weekend. But those actual dirt cars are going to be way better racing there than the Cup cars are going to be. But you know what? I'm trying to stay positive with it. Hold my judgment until we see it. But
we all know how we feel on this one. We talked about it at length many times on this show thus far. Oh boy, we'll see what happens. So yeah, the stage lengths, nothing really to add on it. It's just if you want to know how long a race is going to be, that's basically what the stage lengths was for the announcement. You can look it up yourself if you want. I'm not going through every single stage length. That's just
no.
It's just pointless. So the last little bit of news, we can tease the Rolex 24 a little bit. We've got on Thursday's episode or Friday's episode when it actually comes out, we'll be previewing the Rolex 24 for this upcoming weekend. We've got a pole sitter that happened over the weekend. Chase Elliott's team does win the pole for the Rolex 24. He didn't actually qualify it. Felipe Nasr was the main driver over there for that team. So they're starting on pole. And then surprisingly, Jimmy Johnson's team is finishing last in terms of the DPI class. They qualified, I believe it's 7th for the Rolex 24. So opposite side of the scales there. We'll see the Ally team, if they can come up and challenge his old teammate there and Chase Elliott. Going to be definitely a storyline to watch. We'll preview all of that on the next episode later on this week, and what you can expect, who our predictions are to win the whole thing, each class kind of thing. And yeah, it's going to be a very fun event. I'm really looking forward to getting some cars going around at Daytona. I'm glad it's these cars at the Daytona Road Course. We'll see in a couple weeks' time the cars that I'm not too excited for, but nonetheless, going to be a very, very fun week in store. So any final thoughts on the news and notes before we move into the fun part of today's episode?
Yeah, just more fun, positive announcements and everything. We're getting a lot of fun, cool stuff at Xfinity and truck levels with these announcements, with Landon Castle earlier, or I guess last week, Ryan Vargas going full-time, Jordan Anderson moving up, Alex LeVay coming back full-time, we're hoping to. So a lot of fun little things as we continue to fill out some series, some schedules, and yeah, all these little tidbits. Just every time we get them, I just go, oh, I can't wait. And so just checking off those days until we get there. But we got Rolex 24 coming up this weekend. Very excited for that. And yeah, as you mentioned, Thursday, Friday, we'll be previewing that, giving our predictions, going through the driver lineups and some teams to watch out for as well. So excited for that as well.
For sure. Let's get into the
Let's do it.
This is the preseason, silly season predictions. We'll start off with NASCAR. We'll go, and then we'll go to Formula One a little bit later.
And we're not going crazy in depth. We're doing Cup Series. We're doing F1. We're not doing all the way down because we might do that for our mid-season ones.
Yeah, when we know a little bit more later on.
But doing a preseason Xfinity or trucks line, like that's a bit much even for us.
I know. We do a lot on this show with going a little bit over the top in terms of these things. But I think we'll hold back a little bit on this one. We'll try and keep it a little bit sane. And
Only slightly, though.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll go through each team here on the NASCAR Cup Series side of things, the major ones. We're not going to talk about the little back markers that are just going to be trundling around the track this season that we don't know who they're going to put in the car for 2022. We're talking about the main ones, maybe even a new team or two that's coming into next season if there's a driver that we think could be possibly filling out that driver lineup. Okay. We'll be talking about the ones that are currently on the Cup Series grid as well. So let's start off with Hendrick Motorsports, the team that won the NASCAR Cup Series championship, Kyle.
That's a fun one to say. Shout out Jeff Gordon.
Shout out Jeff Gordon. I'll be happy to give any time we can give a shout out to Jeff Gordon. That is going to be a great episode. So we Chase Elliott, right? Going to be staying there. He's signed to a contract. The defending Cup Series champion. I don't see him leaving there anytime soon. William Byron, I have him there as well. Kyle Larson, obviously coming into the Cup Series for his return this upcoming season. He's going to be there next season. This is a long-term, I think, play by Hendrick Motorsports. They want Kyle Larson in that organization long-term. And then Alex Bowman is a guy that is out of contract this upcoming season. He needs to get a deal done to race for that team in 2022. And let's not forget, it is on the cards that we are going to the next-gen car in 2022. So do teams really want to switch things up for this upcoming season in 2022, that is, or do they want to kind of keep it a little bit more of the same and just stick with the foundation that they're going to build this year and carry it over to next year? And I'm going to say that Hendrick Motorsports does carry that foundation. I'm going to say Alex Bowman does get a contract extension. It just makes too much sense for myself, because they're switching him over to the 48. Ally is a big sponsor over there. He's got the funding now. I would be shocked if he honestly leaves that team for 2022. But I've seen crazier things happen. It could possibly be the case. But Alex Bowman has done enough during his time in the number 88. And I think this upcoming season he will perform to the standards that we expect of him in the 48 this upcoming season. So who do you have for Hendrick Motorsports in 2022?
Yeah, Hendrick has 3 as close to guarantees, if not guaranteed, as possible. And that's Larson, Elliott, and Byron in the 5, 9, and 24. The only question mark for me is the 48 and Bowman. I would be similar to you, very surprised if he's not returning, because he's going over to the 48. He's the successor to Jimmy Johnson. And I would be very surprised if after one season in the 48, they look to mix things up again. There's only one name that I could see potentially if he becomes available, and that's Brad Keselowski. But I think that that's probably a long shot at this point. So I like Alex Bowman returning to the 48 as well.
All right. Hendrick Motorsports stays intact for this upcoming season. Do you want to take it away with Team Penske then? Who do you have for their lineup?
Yeah, Team Penske. The 12 and the 22 are basically confirmed. We've got Blaney and Logano returning there because they're both on multi-year contracts. Obviously, Blaney re-signing literally like a few weeks before COVID hit, so shout out to him for getting that contract done. Brad Keselowski wasn't so lucky, though. He re-signed in the middle of the season on a one-year deal, and that leaves a lot of speculation for some people. Whether you look back to the beginning of last year and you look at the crew chief shakeup and how he was the one perceived to be on the losing end of it all, or how the season played out and only getting the one-year extension. But there's one thing that was announced last year that makes me think that Brad Keselowski returning to Penske is basically already a done deal, and that's Austin Cindric's announcement. Because I don't think that they would have announced that Austin Cindric is going to the 21 if there was potentially a seat available with Brad Keselowski potentially leaving at Penske, because that would make no sense. Why would you name Cindric to the 21, leave DiBenedetto gone, and then have to go out and get somebody else when you know Cindric is eventually going to end up at Penske? So why not just do it right out of the gate? So because of that, I thought about maybe getting a little bit risky here and going Keselowski moving on, but I just don't see it happening. I think the one-year thing was just a stopgap because of COVID, because of money and everything like that. When things get back more to normal, finances return more to normal this year, I think we'll see a long-term extension for Penske and Brad Keselowski. I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I've got Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski as well over there at Team Penske.
Okay.
I thought if he was going to make the move to leave Penske, it would have been this past season, and it did not come to fruition. He seems like he's happy over there at Penske for the most part, and I don't see the opportunity arising for him elsewhere that was like this past season with all the movement. There's less opportunity elsewhere that I could see him fitting in. Hendrick Motorsports is the immediate tie that you think of, but Alex Bowman just seems like he's an integral part over there now at that organization. If that was maybe a year or two ago in Brad Keselowski contract up, then we're maybe talking about a different thing. But right now, they don't really have anybody in their pipeline other than Austin Cindric, but he's going over to the 21. So it makes sense for Penske to keep a hold of Brad Keselowski and keep that famous trio that they've come to really groom over the past couple of seasons together. So I'm staying the same with Kyle here. 2 for 2 here with Penske and Hendrick Motorsports. We move into, I'd say, Joe Gibbs Racing, finishing, I guess, third in terms of the organizations this past season, with Denny Hamlin finishing fourth in the championship finale. We've got some interesting names over here at Joe Gibbs Racing, some different ties to different organizations as well, with one name being Denny Hamlin, you think of with his newly named team with 2311 Racing making its debut this upcoming season with the Michael Jordan partnership. So Joe Gibbs Racing, a very interesting one. This is where I actually have my first big change for 2022. I will say that. I've got Kyle Busch obviously staying over there. He's got a multi-year contract that he signed.
No KBM to Cup?
No, I don't think I'm going to go that bold. Kyle Busch is going to stay over there at Joe Gibbs Racing. Christopher Bell, they're making a commitment to him this upcoming season. They booted out Eric Jones. They're obviously going to keep Christopher Bell there long-term. Martin Truex Jr., I think, does return to the 19 car next season. And my big shakeup is that Denny Hamlin leaves Joe Gibbs Racing.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in a contract year. Martin Truex Jr. is as well, but they're still at the top of their game. We saw that this past season, Denny Hamlin finishing with 7 victories on the season. So he's done exceptionally well these past 2 years. And Martin Truex Jr. had a little bit of a down year, but I'll put a little bit of that onto the new scenery with James Small being at top of the pit box. But, you know, I could see maybe one or either of these guys kind of leaving this team for different reasons. Maybe Martin Truex Jr. with Sherry Pollock's, his health situation. Maybe he wants to take that step back after this season when he's in a contract year. He feels like he's done enough, but I'm wishing Sherry all the best in her recovery as well with that. So I'll say that, you know, Truex is going to stick around for a little bit longer. I don't think he's ready to hang up the fire suit just yet. So then to replace Denny Hamlin over there at Joe Gibbs Racing, I'm going with Harrison Burton to come up
Okay.
into the Cup Series in 2022 to drive the number 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is a bit of a tough one. I was questioning if I should even make this move, but you can kind of infer where I put Hamlin later on in this kind of portion of the episode. But Harrison Burton, he's going to be in the Xfinity Series now for 2 seasons. He's got Dex Imaging, Dex whatever the parts, Dex Imaging, I believe it is, as a great sponsor for him throughout the entire ranks up through then K&N, and then what is currently now ARCA, the Truck Series as well, and then now in the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing. He's just been on that kind of route up through the rankings, and he's had a very impressive rookie season. Didn't quite make the playoffs as far as he would have liked to, but I think this next season he takes that next step forward. He's going to have some reliable teammates to have a say in his performance as well with the car development throughout the season as well. So I think Harrison Burton can make that step up. I never really thought Harrison Burton was that guy that was going to be maybe moving up to the Cup Series to replace one of these departing veterans, but maybe that is the case. I don't know. It is one of my big bold predictions for this next season, and why not? It's preseason. I can go with whatever I want here. So I'm going to say Denny Hamlin leaves Joe Gibbs Racing and Harrison Burton steps into that number 11.
Whew. Bring in the heat early here. Oh, boy. Okay. Well, I've obviously got Kyle Busch returning to the 18. He's on a multi-year contract. No surprise there. I also have Martin Truex Jr. returning to the 19. I think that the rumors there are a lot of people kind of guessing and trying to infer on a situation that they know nothing about. And clearly Truex is still a top-level driver, and I still see him sticking around for at least a couple more years. And Christopher Bell just got there, for crying out loud, and he's the Toyota poster boy when you look at him coming up through the ranks.
Yeah.
They've spent a lot of money on him. He can have a terrible first year, and he'll still be there for at least a couple more seasons after that. So I think those 3 are for sure. The big question mark is Denny Hamlin. You went bold with it and said that he's going to make the little switcheroo there. I went conservative with it. I think that Denny Hamlin's going to stay in the 11 for at least a couple more years. I think that making the jump over to his own team right now is just a little bit premature. So I'm going to say that Denny Hamlin stays in the number 11, and there's no changes at JGR going into next season.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I just kind of – I
love it. I
was close. I was close to doing what you did, but – I figured I've been totally shocked in the past. Maybe I can get ahead of this shock. Maybe I can be the first one to predict it.
Hey, but at least we have our bases covered, because if he stays, then
exactly
we're at least somewhat right. So.
And I don't see anybody else other than Harrison Burton really coming up to replace him, in my opinion, for Denny Hamlin, just because he is a young Toyota developing prospect moving over to a next generation of car. If you're going to make a change, I think that would make the most sense in terms of timing. But that remains to be seen if that is ever going to be the case.
Yeah, if JGR has somebody move on, whether that's Hamlin switching teams or Truex retiring, I do think Harrison Burton's next man up as well. So
okay, fair enough. Joe Gibbs Racing gets a bit of a different look for 2022. For me, he stays the same over there for Kyle. We move on to Stuart Haas Racing. Kevin Harvick's team basically is what it can be renamed to. But Kevin Harvick is in a multi-year deal. It runs out in 2023. He'll be back with the team next season. We can put that to bed. Kevin Harvick is going to be back at Stuart Haas Racing. But who have you got filling out the rest of the Stuart Haas Racing lineup?
This is a fun one, because I think that Harvick's obviously staying. Briscoe's obviously staying. And Custer's an interesting one, but there's no way that they give up on him yet. Just given obviously the history as a prospect with that team. So I think that there's 3 guarantees there, which leaves the 10 car. And that's an interesting one for me. And I do have it changing. I think, I'm going a little bit on this one. So SHR for these last few years has been a one-man show. And as you stated off of your intro for the team, it's the Kevin Harvick show there. They need somebody else to go to that team and try and do something. And what they've had the last few years is a couple solid drivers, but those are drivers in specifically talking about Eric Almirola and Clint Boyer, who are going to perform at the level of the car. They're not going to exceed the level of the car or anything like that. So I think having 2 young guys there in Briscoe and Custer that you can build for the future, having Harvick there as a current star, I think SHR is going to move along this year from Eric Almirola and look elsewhere for somebody that could potentially take that step with this team and maybe be a hidden gem or something like that. So going to the number 10, I have Matt DiBenedetto.
Wow.
I think when I look at the list of free agents here, I think that SHR is going to move on from Almirola here. It's just become stagnant there. And as I said, they've got one big dog there in Harvick. They've got two young guys. They need somebody to kind of bridge that gap. I think it's run its course with Almirola in terms of the level of competition there. So I think they'll look elsewhere. When I look at the list of free agents and somebody that's kind of established in Cup, has shown that they can do solid in decent equipment, at least this last season with Wood Brothers, I think he's going to have a strong year again this year. So I think Matt Benedetto to SHR in the number 10.
Wow. That's
how you like that
bold.
one?
That's
Okay.
up there, man, with bold. Wow. Wow, geez. When I was looking at this, I never really thought of the Benedetto to the 10. I'm going to be completely honest. Yeah, I'll move on to where I think the Benedetto is going a little bit later on. But
Yes,
for Stuart Haas Racing, I've got Cole Custer as well, staying there. They're not going to give up on him. He's a future talent in this sport. Had a little bit of a rough season with consistency, but did get that win at Kentucky. So there is signs of progression and there is a potential there with Cole Custer. Chase Briscoe, they're not going to get rid of him anytime soon, I don't think. He even have a bomb for a season, and he would still be back with the team in 2022, I'd imagine, just because of that Tony Stewart relationship that they seem to have really a tight bond there. But Chase Briscoe is one heck of a race car driver as well. And I do have Eric Almirola staying at Stuart Haas Racing. Okay. If they would have parted ways with him, I think it would have been this past season. But they want him to stay there. He's got significant backing from Smithfield. I don't see that relationship breaking anytime soon, and it just makes sense for him to kind of stay there. It seems like they're pretty, okay with having a one-man show over there with Kevin Harvick, and then leaving the rest to kind of battle for that playoff cut line when one guy can kind of dominate the team. I think a lot of that comes with Rodney Childers over there, that 4 team. I think they bring that organization up a lot, and they're just a great duo, probably the best duo in the garage area. But I do have Eric Almirola staying in the 10. I don't know. I just feel like if they haven't made the decision already, they're just going to keep him there. I would.
Well, the one thing I'll say is they have been changing one driver fairly consistently over these last seasons. When you look at Daniel Suarez going in and then being replaced by Cole Custer, and then this year Clint Boyer going out for Chase Briscoe, I'm thinking maybe Eric Almirola stuck around because they don't want to completely overhaul the team and have a driver lineup change or anything like that. Do these little changes, and with Briscoe, Custer in, Harvick ain't going anywhere. I think it might be time to maybe switch it up with Almirola. But yeah, I got the bold one. You got the bold one in Hamlin there. So
I like it. I do like that pick a lot.
There, I got to say.
I didn't know that Almirola was in a contract year. I thought he signed a multi-year. I wasn't 100% sure on it, but
contracts are only a piece of paper.
Fair enough. So Stuart Haas Racing remains the same for me. Kyle switches it up over there at the Kevin Harvick Racing organization. So we move on to Chip Ganassi Racing here, Kyle. A 2-car organization for the most part. They move up to 3 cars next season? No, do they not? Oh, who knows? But we've got one guy that is, I think, going to be there at least for 2022, and that's going to be Ross Chastain. They're taking a bet on him this upcoming season. I'm not 100% sold on him as of yet for the Cup Series level and the Cup Series ride that he's going to be in. It's a pretty high-profile ride over there in the 42 car. So we'll see how he does with the expectations and what kind of results he can get out of it. But I'll say that he stays there for another season. And then the second seat, man, it is a little bit up in the air. Kurt Busch in a contract year. There have been talks of him, this could be his final season this upcoming year. But the one thing that makes me think that he's going to be coming back in 2022 is he's been the tester for the next gen car, and they want to make sure that he's going to be doing the best job it can to be great for 2022. And I think he's going to be testing that out for a full-time schedule in 2022. I think he stays over there for a 1-year contract. I think he's going to come back for 1 season with the next gen car. I don't think he's ready to hang it up just yet. Not just because I don't want him to, but I don't think he wants to either. I think there's a lot of drive inside Kurt Busch, and He has been doing a bit of the broadcasting thing as well, so that it could be similar to what Clint Bowyer has done, where they just kind of feel like this is the end of the road for them. They don't really have much more to accomplish. But I think Kurt Busch can sign a one-year deal, try out the next-gen car on a full-time basis. I don't think he would be doing these tests if that were to be the case, if he's going to be retiring. So I think he's found a home over there at Chip Ganassi Racing. He's got the backing from Monster. He's not going to have any sponsorship problems. So I have the Chip Ganassi Racing stable staying the same for 2022.
Yeah, I've got Ross Chastain going back to the 42 as well. That one I feel like is an easy one because there's a history there, and I don't think that they'd give up on him after 1 year as well. Kind of a similar theme with some of these rookies, or I guess Chastain's not technically a rookie, but some of these young drivers stepping into new teams, I don't think that they would give up on him after 1 year. But Kurt Busch was the one that I think I battled on the most, because we've literally heard from him himself that it's 50-50 going into 2022. So he's been doing a lot of the testing, but does that mean that they want somebody that's active right now but won't be in 2022? Does it mean that he's interested and wants to return for 2022? I thought about reading into stuff. I don't really know, but there's always a couple retirements every year, and it's got to be somebody. So I'm going to say Kurt Busch retires from full-time
I
racing.
hope it doesn't happen, man. I love Kurt Busch.
I know.
Oh.
I'm going to say he retires from full-time racing. I think that he'll still do some select stuff, but I don't think he'll be returning full-time to that one car. Who the hell replaces him, though? Because when I looked at the list of stuff, I wanted to get a veteran in there, but when I looked at how everything shook out for me, there wasn't really a veteran available that really fit the bill. So I went a little bit, I don't know if it's off the board, but it's maybe not something that you think of right away. I went to the Chevy pipeline, and I'm going to say that partnering Ross Chastain in 2022 in the one car, Noah Gragson. A little younger lineup there for Chip Ganassi Racing, not something we've seen necessarily all too much. They usually have one veteran in there, but when I look at the list of people available, I don't see somebody that really fits that mold. As well as something else that I've got coming down the pipeline when we get to them eventually here in the Chevy camp. I think Gregson's going to end up in the one with Kurt Busch going into partial retirement. He'll still do a couple races here and there. He likes to run a bunch of different stuff. So I hope maybe we get to see that Kurt back where he's just going and doing whatever. But I think 2021 will be his final year full-time in NASCAR.
Oh God!
I know, it pains me to say.
That's oh God! I'm not ready for that. I am not ready for the emotions that'll come when Kurt Busch does retire. If John Hunter Nemechek was still in the Cup Series, he would have been my guy over there, probably at Chip Ganassi Racing, right? But this move over the offseason to go back down to the Truck Series in the Toyota camp, I think that basically negates that, throws it completely out the window. So, yeah, I was so torn on Kurt Busch because I think probably 70% of my decision for him to stay there is because I want him to stay there, and 30% is probably logic.
I thought about it. As I was saying it, I thought about just saying it, but yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see what happens with Kurt Busch. Definitely one to keep your eye on. Probably the biggest name that could potentially retire at the end of this season. Hopefully that's not the case. We love Kurt Busch to stick around for at least another season after this one. Hopefully Kyle can do a little bit. Kyle Busch, that is, can do a little bit of unless Kyle wants to DM him himself here. But if Kyle Busch can do a little bit of convincing,
try my best.
I want to see. I don't want to see the scoreboard just say Busch when Kyle's just on it now.
I hadn't thought about that. That would be so weird.
I've been thinking about that for a couple of seasons, and I want to see that KY Busch because that's just not right for me to see just Busch next to the 18. It gives me chills, man. I can't even think about it.
Okay.
It is the iconic duo, the Busch brothers I've grown up watching, and I hope that doesn't end after this upcoming season, but we will see what Kurt Busch's future has in store. We'll move on to Richard Childress Racing here. Kyle, who do you have for their lineup for 2022?
This one's nice and easy for me. If they weren't opening up the third car for Ty after this season, I don't think that they'll do it.
Poor Ty.
Poor Ty. But I've got same lineup. I've got Dillon returning to the 3 and Reddick returning to the 8. Reddick's an interesting one because if he has another really good season, maybe one of the bigger teams tries and poaching him. But I think I think the fact that RCR went out and got him in Xfinity means a lot to Reddick. And so I think that that's going to stay the relationship for at least a couple more seasons. Maybe something comes down the pipeline for Reddick moving to a quote unquote bigger organization. But for now, I think Austin Dillon stays in the 3 and Tyler Reddick's returning to the 8.
I have the same thing. Austin Dillon in a contract year, but I don't imagine him leaving the 3 car. I would be shocked if he leaves not only the Fame 3, but also his grandfather's organization. I think that contract will take
That's a
10 seconds.
lifetime contract.
That's like a Thanksgiving over Thanksgiving dinner kind of thing. Hey, you want to re-sign? Sure. What's the number? All right, take it. And, like
for Austin's sake, I hope it happens before Thanksgiving. But
yeah, that's true. Maybe an Easter gift.
There we go.
Yeah, Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick round up my Richard Childress Racing lineup. I just don't see it changing.
No third car. No third car for you.
Not for me. I'm not that ballsy yet.
Okay.
They don't have. If they had a more prominent driver in the Xfinity Series, I would think about it. But for right now, Mike Schneider, I don't think he's going to make that jump up to the Cup Series to, devote a third car to him. So I'll stay with Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick over there at Richard Childress Racing. This next one, simple. It's already confirmed. Austin Cindric moving over to Wood Brothers Racing. There's no real need to discuss that. Happy that they kind of got that one out of the way because it would be a question mark for this upcoming season if they had not announced it. But Austin Cindric going to be over there in the 21 car in 2022. We move on to Roush Fenway Racing. An interesting one, I'll say the least on this one. We've got 2 guys in there right now, Chris Buescher and Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman in a contract season as well, so one to keep your eye on in terms of results or what he does for his future plans. For me, I've got Chris Buescher returning to that team. They wanted him. They poached him from JTG. He had a little bit of a down year, but I've put that to Roush's performance as a whole. Hopefully they can make that next step forward. And there's one guy I really haven't mentioned yet in terms of who's out over there in the NASCAR Cup Series that's going to be looking for a ride from the team that we just talked about there with Wood Brothers Racing. It's Matt DiBenedetto, and I see him landing over there at Roush Fenway Racing. The Ford camp, I think he stays in that camp, but I just don't see him getting that Stuart Haas Racing ride. If he was going to go somewhere, it would have been the 10 for me, but I see that he just doesn't quite break through and get that, and he's going to go back a little bit in a step back, I'd say, but he's going to get a bit of a job security role here with Roush Fenway Racing. I don't see him moving manufacturers again. I think he's kind of happy over there with Ford. I think it would be a bad decision if he were to leave that camp because I think there would be opportunities in the future for him to stay over there in the Ford camp. So I think this could be a little bit of a stopgap kind of thing, maybe 1-2 years over here at Roush and then maybe look elsewhere, maybe when Kevin Harvick retires. I don't know. But Matt DiBenedetto is someone that has been a fan favorite, your favorite driver as of right now as well. I see him landing over there at Roush Fenway Racing for me.
I like that pick. And if I didn't go bold with the Almirola one, I think I would have probably put DiBenedetto with Roush as well, because I do think that Newman retires after this year. It
makes
just
sense.
Works, right? The contract's up, new car, all this kind of stuff. Especially after the incident at the beginning of the year, obviously, just makes sense. And it's unfortunate to say because Newman's been around for a while and he's a fun guy to have around. But you got to think that it's probably coming up on about time for him to retire here. But in the 17, I've got Buescher returning as well. I like him long-term with Roush. And if they can start to turn things around as an organization, I think he's a sneaky guy going forwards as a guy that might be a hidden gem kind of thing. And partnering him, funny that you had DiBenedetto in the 6 because I've got the guy for me that DiBenedetto is replacing with SHR. I'm going to say Eric Almirola goes over to the 6 there.
Yes.
Probably brings over some Smith's Field sponsorship as well with him. I can't imagine that relationship ends. But I'm going to say Almirola to the 6, hopefully brings him some money as well with him. And maybe we see them return to at least some form going into the next couple of years, because seeing Roush Fenway finishing like 18th on back is
pains me.
Heartbreaking. So I've got Newman retiring as well. You've got DiBenedetto going there. I'm going to say Almirola ends up in the 6.
It's very interesting that we kind of had the same thought process a little bit, just different organizations. One thing off there with Matt DiBenedetto. I think that's the real big one this offseason that is for sure on the move. So we'll see where he ends up in 2022. So Different look for Roush Fenway Racing over there
Yeah.
for 2022. Ryan Newman, I have him retiring as well. Just makes sense for career timeline. And if Kurt Busch does retire, it would be, quite the story. The 2008 Daytona 1-2 finish there with Newman and Kurt Busch, that the Penske teammates back then, they go out on their own terms here for this one. It would be a nice storyline, but I hope Kurt Busch does stick around for at least another season. I will just keep on harping on that throughout the year. I think we move on to Front Row Motorsports.
Okay.
A bit of I'm going to put this as an easy one, but who do you have over there for that organization?
Yeah, for starters, I don't see Michael McDowell going anywhere the rest of his career. He's a front row guy at this point. He's had a very strong season last year. I think they'll continue to build on that this year, so I don't see that changing into 2022. And similarly for the 38, unless Alfredo decides to pull a wild card and go down to KBM, I think that could be a potential long-term relationship as well, where front row brings in a young guy and kind of develops alongside of him. So I've got McDowell in the 34, Alfredo in the 38, nice and easy.
Yeah, nice and easy for me as well. Sticking with it. We'll see what Anthony Alfredo does. That could potentially change. I could see that it changing for 2022 depending on results. But for right now, I don't want to jump to anything too quickly here. We need to see what he can do. And then maybe when it comes time for a mid-season stuff that we're going to do, we may have a different opinion on that. But for right now, Anthony Alfredo, Mike McDowell round out the two-car, staying over there with the two-car tandem over there for Front Row Motorsports. Moving on to Jtg Doherty Racing, I'd say here, Kyle.
Yes.
An interesting one for myself. I do have a bit of a shakeup over there for that team. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is in a contract season this upcoming year, but I see him staying. He was one that I was really considering changing. I was really, really close with him moving teams, but I just couldn't quite think of an organization that he would fit best in elsewhere. I don't know if he's done enough to justify a move up to a better team than what JTG is when you look at what he's had with Roush and what he did with JTG. He had some moments last year, but more often than not, he was kind of wrecked in the garage area before the end of the race. So
JTG as a whole, man, they did not have any luck.
They had the worst streak in NASCAR history with consecutive last place finishes. So not a great look on that team at that midway point of the season, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I say that he returns to the team. He's got some funding over there. I don't know. I just feel like he's got to stay there. I don't know where he could go elsewhere. I hope he doesn't go up to a bigger team, because I think it's taking away from somebody that's probably more deserving than what he is. I hate to say it, but it is the truth, I feel like. But then to partner him, I do have Ryan Preece on the way out of Jtg Doherty Racing, not only just because it is an open entry car, it seems, for this upcoming season, but based off of the results from last year. I am a big Ryan Preece guy. I think he is a good driver. I just don't think he'll have the results enough this season to justify him staying in that car. So then to partner Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I've got Brandon Jones coming up to the Cup Series next season. I think Xfinity Series for JGR, that is going to be completely revamped after the departure of Harrison Burton and Brandon Jones. Those two guys have been there for a little bit. Brandon Jones was rumored to maybe even come up to the Cup Series for this season. He's got the backing from Menards. I think he's in line for some sort of bump up to the Cup Series. Well, he's not going to get a top-tier ride, but I think a mid-pack team like this would be probably a reasonable ask for someone like Brandon Jones. He brings sponsorship, and he's had some pretty decent results. I mean, he beat Kyle Busch at Phoenix last year, if you didn't know, in the Xfinity Series, if they didn't mention that in the broadcast enough this past year. But nonetheless, Brandon Jones going to be over there in the 37 car for me, and partnering Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Still bitter about that one, eh?
Nope.
Already. JTG. I agree with Ricky Stenhouse. I thought about moving him, but I just didn't see somewhere where he fit in. Because if you look at it,
had that thing with Roush, I would have said that maybe go back to there, but that was kind of a messy.
There's no way he goes back, I don't think. So I kept him there as well. But with the 37, I'm going to say it goes away. I'm going to say that JTG.
Whoa.
JTG, it's already an open entry this season. I think they may already have had some obligations to run the season in terms of sponsorship or anything like that going into this season. But the fact that they don't have a charter for that second entry right now is really, really interesting to me. And when I look at how things shake out, at least for myself here, unless they're outbidding somebody, I don't see them getting that charter back or loaning it or anything like that. So maybe a little bit bold. Maybe it's just a temporary thing until they get the finances back under them after COVID and everything. but I'm going to say the 37, or sorry, I should say the 47 goes away. Stenhouse becomes the 37 because the 37 is the number that they've had as their primary car most of the time. So last year you had a certain 48 shutting down.
That was a bit bold.
That was slightly bold. This year, I'm going to say the 47 shuts down.
Wow. That's a good one. You still seem to surprise me, Kyle, every time we do an episode. I do like that.
Look, I don't like doing it, but...
No, it does make sense, though. I can see the rationale. I think the reason I kind of kept it as a two-car organization is because of the kind of downcrease, or I guess, how would I word this? The funding for the car for 2022 is meant to be less. So maybe they can put more resources into buying a charter for some sort of team, and then they can focus on the car with it being a little bit more cost effective for every single team across the board. I was thinking about maybe moving Noah Gragson over here, that Hendrick Motorsports alliance.
If I kept the 37, I probably would have done something where Kurt Busch returns to the 1 and then Gragson goes to the 37, because I thought that would have been a good landing spot for him. But in my scenario here, he gets a little bit better there with Chip Ganassi, and the 37 goes away.
Yeah.
Or 47.
I was close. Whatever. I couldn't find a place other than GTG for Brandon Jones, but I could definitely see Gragson being the guy instead of Brandon Jones if he can find a place elsewhere. Right. It would make more sense with being the Hendrick kind of stable, but Brandon Jones was a Chevrolet driver before coming over to Toyota, was with RCR. So we'll see if that does come back to Brandon Jones, if he ends up coming to the Cup Series and to JTG. But for Kyle, he's got one car organization for JTG in 2022. I've got Brandon Jones taking over for Ryan Preece. And I say Preece just finds a spot down the Xfinity Series, maybe somewhere else, just not going to be in the Cup Series, I don't think, in 2022.
Maybe he replaces one of those guys at Joe Gibbs or something like that.
Potentially. I think that would be a good landing spot for him, to be honest. It would make sense in terms for me, but we'll move on to an easy one here. I think, Kyle, Richard Petty Motorsports. I think you have Eric Jones staying there.
Yeah, it's got to be Eric Jones. He was such a good free agent signing for them to get him at a discount, I believe on a multi-year deal as well. I believe when that was announced, and obviously multi-year deal can mean 1 year plus 1 year option. So we never know with that stuff. Like DiBenedetto was a multi-year deal at Levine Family Racing, and he was done after a year, for example. So, but yeah, no, Eric Jones staying in the 43. I feel like there's nothing really next season that'll make one of the bigger organizations go, oh yeah, we need to buy him out of his contract and bring him out of Richard Petty after this season being available without having to buy him out and nobody really biting on it. So I think after his contract's up with Petty, maybe he gets a return to a bigger organization, but for now I think he's staying in the 43.
I hope he gets that chance again. I don't think he should be
there. Best case scenario, Petty just gets better and better, but
yeah, I've got Eric Jones staying there for 2022 as well.
Yeah, that's
multi-year
an easy
deal. Very similar to what kind of, it's like the confirmed of Austin Cindric, if that makes any sense. But Eric Jones, I think, is going to stay over there in the iconic number 43 for at least 2 seasons. We'll see where he ends up maybe after that multi-year contract is up. Moving into one of the last teams that was currently on the field for this past season, that's Spire Motorsports, putting a bit more investment into the Cup Series this upcoming season. Obviously, Corey LaJoie going to be their full-time guy over there, with some part-time stuff with the other car that they're going to be running on the side with the 77. Corey LaJoie's got the number 7. So for me, I've got Corey LaJoie returning to that team. It just makes the most sense. They seem to be pretty happy with what he's going to be bringing to the table. And then to partner him, I think it's going to be a full-time entry in that second car in 2022. I got Justin Haley moving up to the Cup Series for Spire Motorsports.
Okay.
I think it makes the most sense. He's been running part-time for them for the past couple of seasons now. They seem to be interested in him. There's rumors of Kaulig coming up to the Cup Series full-time in 2022. That's basically confirmed. But he is an Xfinity Series driver for Kaulig, but I don't see him making that jump up to the Cup Series for them. I think he's kind of got a little bit of prior engagement with Spire that could lend himself to moving there instead. And we'll talk about Kaulig Racing maybe a little bit later on in the show. But I've got Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie over there for Spire.
I like that. For Spire, for me, for starters, the charter shenanigans and whatnot, right now they've got 3. They've got 2 that they're using themselves, and then they're loaning 1 to Trackhouse right now. But for Spire, I'm going to say that the 7 Coriola Joy, that stays, but they don't have another charter used by themselves. I think that they're going to loan out that second charter to somebody else. They might have some open entries or whatnot if they do want to run a second car themselves still. But for me, I think that they're going to run that 1 charter themselves, and then they're going to loan it still to Trackhouse and then loan it to another team, which we'll get to, I would assume, in a minute.
Yes. I think we can get that to that team probably right now, I'd say.
Okay.
Unless you're thinking of something different. I don't know. Could be wrong. Wait, no, maybe not. It could be something different. But we'll move on to a team that's going to be coming to the lineup this season. Kyle, 2311 Racing. Bubba Wallace over there for this upcoming season. Who do you have over there in 2022?
All righty. Bubba Wallace staying in the 23. That one's easy. I have them expanding to a second car, though, as do you. Unless you've got Denny Hamlin going to, like, Trackhouse or something. You've got Denny Hamlin going as that second car there. I have Denny Hamlin returning to JGR. So, for starters, just to get the charter shenanigans out of the way, I think that they'll purchase one from Rick Ware Racing, and Rick Ware will go keep their 3 cars that they've usually had. They purchased one last year from Premium Motorsports, so they've got an extra one coming into this season than they usually do. I think they'll sell one of those to 2311, and 2311 goes to a 2-car stable. And partnering Bubba Wallace in the 45, because, of course, Michael Jordan's other number, John Hunter Nemechek. I'm going bold with it. I think when I look at the pipeline, I think Joe Gibbs Racing will want to have Harrison Burton step into their stable probably in 2, maybe 3 years when Hamlin or Truex move on there. They played the long game with Christopher Bell. He stayed quite a while when you look at his age and his performance coming up the ranks. I think John Hunter Nemechek going to Toyota and with KBM is a very telling thing, and the fact that it wasn't Joe Gibbs Racing and Xfinity as well is very interesting to me. So I'm going bold with it. I'm going to say 2311 Toyota. They get another entry in the Cup Series, and it's going to John Hunter Nemechek.
Wow. Fair play. Wow, that is interesting. I have Denny Hamlin going over to that team as pretty much.
What number?
It is interesting that now that I think about it, because it is 2311 Racing, and it would be kind of stupid if he doesn't run the 11 over there if he's not in the 11, because it is 2311.
What other number could JGR run if they did?
I don't know. I think they would have to kind of sell the 11 to Denny Hamlin if he were to come over there. It wouldn't make sense if they had 2311 in their name. Maybe I kind of messed that up.
They run the 54, but that's a Kyle Busch thing, so I don't know.
I could see them running the 54. I think that would make sense for them. Harrison Burton maybe moving around a little bit in that stable in terms of numbers. But I have Denny Hamlin coming over to his own team. Contract year. It makes the most sense.
It does kind of look perfect.
There is sponsorship obligations, of course. FedEx is going to fall in basically anywhere, I'd feel like. You'd have to maybe switch off of the Coke brand. You'd have to go over to Dr. Pepper, as we've seen from this past off season, where they've got Dr.
That's
Pepper
a fun one.
Going over with Bubba Wallace now. So maybe there's some future kind of negotiations to go on there. But you'd think that Denny Hamlin would want to drive for his own team. Like, it just would make the most sense. This is the year to do it if he's going to do it at all in 2022. New car, level playing field for mostly every single driver, every single team. I just think it makes perfect sense. It seems like they have a good relationship between Bubba and Denny. And I think it would be kind of a shame if he didn't go and race for his own team. I think it would be kind of stupid. But I kind of hope this happens, because I think it'd be pretty cool to see Denny Hamlin driving over there for Michael Jordan after having that relationship. So I've got Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin over there for that team.
I was very close to putting Matt DiBenedetto in that seat, though. I'm not going to lie.
Wow. Oh,
and just completely just go. But no, I didn't go that crazy with it. But it would be funny.
Oh, my God.
The guy that stole his first win from him goes out and gives him another ride. But no, I'm going to say Nemechek ends up there in the 45. And then I think probably 1 or 2 years after that, maybe we see Denny Hamlin go over there or something like that. But I don't know. That's way too far down the line. We're already getting a year ahead of ourselves here today anyways. But,
yeah, fair enough.
we got, two more, I think?
I've got two more. Yeah, so Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace over there for 2311 Racing. We move on to the other new team that's coming into the Cup Series this season, Trackhouse Racing Team. Daniel Suarez over there for this upcoming season. I think they're going to just stay with one entry. Daniel Suarez is going to be their guy. I don't see them adding a second car in 2022. You feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that is just a great match there with Suarez there. Suarez needs to stay somewhere for multiple years at this point. And when you look at their aspirations, the alliances they have, the fact that they have a charter already in year one, just makes too much sense to stay there.
Fair enough. I am in complete agreement with that. And the last team for today's Cup Series, silly season predictions, Colleague Racing, a team that's going to be coming to the Cup Series in 2022. They basically said it themselves. I've got AJ Allmendinger coming up to the Cup Series, making his return since he left his JTG days. He's going to be in a 1-year contract with the Xfinity Series program, going to be coming up to the Cup Series. He's going to be running some part-time stuff, most likely on the road courses for them. It just seems like a perfect match for him and that team. AJ Allmendinger is a great person to kind of spearhead that ship in its inaugural season, and I'm hopeful that this is the actual driver that they put behind the wheel of whatever number they decide to choose, because AJ Allmendinger would definitely be a welcome return to the Cup Series. So who do you have for Colleague Racing in 2022?
Yeah, so Colleague Racing goes Cup Racing. I'm going to say that they acquire a charter on loan from Spire, so that's where that tie comes in. I think that Spire will loan out their 2 extra ones, and then they'll keep one themselves for LaJoy. So there's your little tie-in there. And I'm going to say that Justin Haley ends up running the 16 for Colleague Racing with that Spire relationship as well tucked in there. When I look at it here, I think Justin Haley makes a lot of sense for full-time, and then because Colleague likes to do stuff, I think that they might enter Allmendinger in road courses or stuff like that and select races as an open entry as well, because we've seen both last year and now coming into this year even more that they're not afraid of that open entry label as well. So maybe they go into next year, maybe they aren't able to find a charter, maybe that Spire charter goes back on loan or bought back by JTG or something like that, and they have to run the season on an open entry, something like that. I don't know, but I'm going to say that they get it from Spire. Haley goes in the 16, and then Allmendinger does some part-time stuff.
All right, that's a good one. If Haley doesn't end up at Spire for me, he ends up at Colleague. He's going to be in the Cup Series in 2022.
He's going to be in the Cup Series, whether it's going to be which organization.
Yeah,
and hell, it might even be both. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. So for me, I've got only one retirement after this next season in 2022, Ryan Newman, and then the other movement is Ryan Preece leaving the Cup Series. I don't see him returning, but other than that, everybody that's in the Cup Series right now or somebody in the Xfinity Series is going to be coming up. There's only going to be 2 departures for me from the current Cup Series career that's going into 2022, that is. So, and then I think you got 3 then, correct? If you got Preece, Newman, and Kurt Busch
retiring. Yeah, I've got Kurt Busch retiring, Ryan Newman retiring, and then Preece going back to Xfinity.
Yeah. I think that we could be pretty right on these. I'm going to be honest. I think there's a lot of different ways. I mean, we could be completely wrong.
I don't know. I think we're going to be way out to lunch, but who knows?
I don't know. Way out to lunch, you got it right. You got it right this time.
Hey, I got it right this time.
Bravo.
Out to toast. You got to love it. We need to make a shirt, out to toast. But, yeah, we got to get on that merch train or something. But no.
100%.
When I look at it, there's a few interesting ones that are a bit of wild cards, and I feel like we have enough differences where we have our bases covered, where if something does happen, we might have some stuff, but who knows?
I think it's the expansion.
I did decently with our silly season stuff.
Yeah, you did better than me.
Season last year, but even then, we were still missing. Like there was like the 2311 stuff, trackouts. Like there was so much we missed.
We couldn't have predicted all that. Like
no,
there's no way.
There's always going to be stuff that we can't predict going into it. Maybe Floyd Mayweather's team becomes a thing. Like who knows?
Yeah,
like,
but Matt DiBenedetto ends up over there for Floyd Mayweather. But yeah,
I would love that. But
it would be. I think the 2311 racing and the Toyota camp in general is going to be the hub of everything that's going to happen this upcoming season in terms of movement for 2022. Do they add a second car? Because there was the the blueprint of potential expansion on their thing that they released. Like, it's going to happen eventually. Do they want to take that risk in 2022? That remains to be seen. I think Brad Keselowski is going to stay over there at Penske, but if he doesn't, where does he go?
The domino effect of that.
Exactly. He's like if he stays over there, it kind of becomes a little bit more simple, but if he leaves, it becomes 10 times more complicated. And
fireworks.
I don't think I'm ready for that mentally, to be honest.
No, of course not.
I wouldn't mind a little bit more of a down year in terms of silly season stuff, because this past year was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Exactly. And I don't imagine that honestly changing, because this sport moves 1,000 miles a minute, and it makes sense that it is a motorsport in that sense. So any final thoughts on the Cup Series side of things before we move into what the Formula One 2022 grid's going to look like?
Yeah, just I like how we
diverse,
similar train of thinking, but very different kind of picks as well.
Yes.
So that was fun. But I am very fascinated to see where we go with this F1 grid, because there's some weird stuff potentially. I don't know.
Potentially. There is definitely that. So we'll move on from the Cup Series here. We'll come and revisit that later on in the year, see how right we are, if there's any announcements throughout the season, and how wrong we are. And we'll make our predictions later on for what 2022 will look like in maybe a more definite fashion as the season rolls along. So we'll move on to Formula One, and we'll go in Constructors Series or Constructors finishing order from this past season. Yeah. So it starts with Mercedes. It's going to end with Williams. So let's start off with Mercedes. Very similar format. We'll go back and forth, and it's the big team, the next generation of Formula One as well, coming into 2022. A new car, new aero package, new everything basically over there in Formula One. So there could be a little bit more of a switch up. I mean, this past season there's been a lot of switch ups, so I don't know how much more switching up they want to do, but there is definitely the possibility of that happening once again in 2022 with rumors, what we've heard, and what people have done this past season in 2020. So we'll start off with Mercedes here. Lewis Hamilton is not signed to a contract for this upcoming season yet, but I imagine that deal will be put together at some point in time over the next couple of months. We heard it may happen before Christmas. That is much that is definitely wrong. But I imagine
literally a month ago as we're recording it.
Exactly. Lewis Hamilton has not yet signed for this upcoming year, but I say that he's going to be around, and I think he's going to be back in 2022 over there at Mercedes. I think he wants to test out the next generation of car. Whether he likes it or not, that could just be a one-year kind of thing. He just seems to be on this one-year kind of contract that he's been on the last couple of seasons now, and I don't see that changing for at least the next two. So I think Lewis Hamilton does come over to Mercedes just stay at Mercedes in 2022. And then to partner him, I've got George Russell, baby. I am not letting this guy go wayside. Valtteri Bottas, I'm sorry. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more. George Russell, you are coming into Mercedes to partner Lewis Hamilton, and that better be the case, or I will be having a big fit on this show at some point in time if that is not the news that we hear over this next year. George Russell, what a talent this young kid is. He proved himself at the Secure Grand Prix. I don't need anything more to show me that he is ready for this next chapter in his F1 career. He's going to be partnering over there at Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. You heard it here first, folks. I will be losing my mind if this does not happen, because I want to see Russell against Hamilton. I think it would be totally a disservice to the entire F1 fan base community if we don't see this happen at least once. George Russell, the Brit for the British team. You just would love to see it, and I think George Russell is going to be taking that next step. It would be heartbreaking for him if he stays at Williams and doesn't get that shot and they sign Valtteri Bottas for another year. But I've got Hamilton and Russell at Mercedes.
I thought about going bold on this one. I'm not going to lie. I really, really thought about having it Bottas and Russell as the pairing at Mercedes. But I think Hamilton sticks around, as you mentioned, a little bit longer. He doesn't even have the contract signed for this year. But I think he gets that done. It'll be a one-year deal. We'll do the whole thing over again over the summer or over the winter, excuse me. But I think he stays. I think he stays for another year. I think he wants to try out that next gen. I hope he does as well, because that Russell versus Hamilton lineup would be amazing. I've got Russell as the second seat there as well. I think that'll be amazing. I think after this season, there might be some regret for Mercedes to that they didn't go with the gamble and put Russell in that seat right away. And I think Secure showed them a lot. I would be stunned if he's not in a Mercedes going into 2022. I don't think you can hold him back any longer at that point. He's got to be in the Mercedes going into 2022. Otherwise, if I'm Russell and it's 2022 and I'm still not in Mercedes, I'm looking elsewhere, because at some point you've got to continue on with your career. And Williams has been nice and fine. Going into 2022, looks like they're going to get some upgrades because they're looking to accept some parts from Mercedes as well. But I don't see how Russell can accept returning to Williams for 2022. So I agree with you, and I think Bottas is out at Mercedes in 2022.
Yeah, I was hoping that would be the case for you, because I'm pretty adamant on this, and our season-ending grades for Valtteri Bottas was basically a hint in itself. But George Russell, if they hadn't assigned Bottas to the contract extension already when the Sakir Grand Prix had happened, I think they would have made the switch over the offseason. But with contract obligations, they have to try and adhere to them for this upcoming year. So I think they'll get the 1 year done. Valtteri Bottas can leave on his own terms and find a place elsewhere for 2022, but George Russell's going to make that step up. We move on to Red Bull Racing. Max Verstappen, their golden boy, my favorite driver, I have to say, over there in Formula One. I think he's going to be staying there for quite some time unless something miraculous changes over there. He's their main man. He's the future of that team and the current of that team. And then Sergio Perez, the kind of big move over the offseason. He's going to be replacing Alexander Albon for 2021. And I see him staying over there at Red Bull Racing in 2022. It just makes too much sense. They don't really have that one guy, that it guy that is in the pipeline right now that they could say that they want to bring up to Red Bull for 2022. Perez, I'm expecting him to pass with flying colors this season. Partnering Verstappen, going to be a nice 1A to 1B for that team. And I think that relationship will continue on in 2022.
Yeah, I think Red Bull needs some driver lineup stability at this point. And even if Perez has a slightly worse season, if he has a disastrous season, then you got to change something, obviously. But I don't think that'll be the case. Verstappen stays. He doesn't jump ship. Perez, I think he'll do a very tidy job as a number 2 there. I think he'll stay there. I don't think that Yuki Tsunoda will show enough in year 1 where you have to put him in that seat away.
They can't do it again. That's 3 in a row.
Exactly. They can't do it again. I think after this one, they learned their lesson, hopefully at least. And they'll let this kind of next group of Red Bull drivers properly marinate at AlphaTauri. So for me, Perez, Verstappen, relatively easy pick on that one.
For sure. 2 for 2 in terms of teams thus far. Who do you have for McLaren in 2022? The iconic duo of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo for 2021. Do you see it changing or staying that way?
No, I think this one's easy as well. Ricciardo, Norris, there's no reason for either of them to change it up at this point. Ricciardo, some people have criticized the move now, moving on from Renault, now Alpine. I still like the move, especially when you look at McLaren going to the Mercedes engines and everything like that. I really like the future there for Ricciardo with McLaren, and same for Norris. He's been a McLaren development driver for forever. He's now at the team, and I don't see him moving on either. So I think that's going to be a very fun lineup. I don't know if it's going to be like as crazy fun as some people think, but I think it's going to be an extremely, extremely talented one on the track at the very least. So I've got Ricciardo, Norris staying for McLaren.
I do as well. I don't think that they can break that up after one season unless something goes disastrously wrong.
Yeah.
It seems like a really good duo to move forward with the future. A prominent and deserving caliber driver in Ricciardo. And then a future driver there in Lando Norris that is just taking the world by storm in terms of everything on and off the track. He's just a great person for the sport. McLaren would be foolish to try and get rid of either of those guys for 2022. They need foundation over there. Lando Norris will be in his 4th year of Formula One by then as well. So he'll know what he's doing behind the wheel of a car. And I'm pretty would it be his 4th year? Yes, 4th year. Yes, it would. That's pretty crazy to say. Wow, we're getting old, man. We're getting old. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo over there at McLaren, and then move on here to Aston Martin. Kyle, now the newly rebranded team, not Racing Point anymore. Force India seems like a lifetime ago. We've got Aston Martin over there. So who do you have for the green livery painted car for 2022?
Well, there's one we know for sure, and that's Lance Stroll, because it's going to take a lot to get him away from that team at this point, and they showed that based off of dropping Sergio Perez last season. And I don't think that they bring in Sebastian Vettel in a big name signing and drop him after one season either. I think that Vettel is going to return to form. I don't know how high up he'll be in the standings, but I think he'll be rejuvenated. He'll have that interest level again at Aston Martin. It's not going to be the tire fire that was Ferrari these last couple of seasons. So I like Vettel at Aston Martin. I think Vettel Stroll stays as the lineup going into 2022.
I have the same thing. It just makes the most sense. Sebastian Vettel. They would not bring him in for just 1 year and then just kick him to the curb. Lance Stroll, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon either until Lawrence Stroll has no real part in that team or Lance Stroll has done something significantly wrong. I don't see him leaving that team anytime soon. So it makes sense there. So we are 4 for 4 as we get to the near the midway point of the F1 grid. And maybe there could be a switch up here, maybe not, but we move on to Alpine F1 team, not Renault anymore, obviously going over to that newly rebranded team as well for 2021. That'll be the same way in 2022. Fernando Alonso makes his return to the sport this upcoming season, signed a multi-year deal. I have him returning to Alpine in 2022. He's on a 2-year contract. It will probably be his last year in Formula One then in 2022. I think they won't be letting Fernando Alonso go just because of the name that he is, and I think he'll be pretty damn good for that team as well. But then to partner him, I do have a switch up here. I do think Esteban Ocon is leaving the team. I know that Frenchman kind of vibe that they're going for. They want French drivers, but I think they replace them with another French driver, and that's going to be Pierre Gasly. The signs are there. It's been kind of the stars are aligning for that to take shape. It doesn't make sense for Pierre Gasly to go any higher in the Red Bull rankings. It didn't work out for him at the main team in Red Bull. He's going to have to look elsewhere for a ride if he wants to get more competitive in the sport, and I think that starts with Alpine F1 team. Esteban Ocon will probably play second fiddle to Fernando Alonso, and even if he doesn't, I could see Esteban Ocon getting let go because he is on a 1-year contract here for that team. So I think Pierre Gasly fits that mold. A French driver leaving the team for a French driver that's going to be coming in. Pierre Gasly's shown all the signs at AlphaTauri that he is ready for this next step, and I see that happening in 2022.
Yeah, this is one that I struggled with a little bit because if it wasn't for that second year on Alonso's contract, I would have had a different lineup. But he's got that second year, and he's a high-profile driver, and for all those reasons, he's going to stay. It's going to take a lot for him to leave a year early for the contract. And although I think that it might not go so well for Alonso at Alpine, I think he stays in 2022, and partnering him as well. I do have Pierre Gasly. I really, really, really wanted to do Gasly and Ocon, but that second year of Alonso's contract just made it too difficult to try and work it in. So I have Alonso Gasly at Alpine. As you mentioned, Pierre Gasly, his time's up at AlphaTauri. He's got to find somewhere else to go after the season, I think. And when you look at the other teams higher up on the grid, we've got Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, and Aston Martin all with fairly obvious moves to make. He's not going to be going to any of those. And so the obvious tie to make is the French team there in Alpine, who is going to French colors and could be in the search for a new French driver. So it makes a lot of sense. Ocon, I really wanted to keep him at that team, but I just couldn't find a way to make it fit. So I am in agreement with Alonso and Gasly at Alpine in 2022.
Exactly. The second year on that Alonso contract really messes things up if they were ever going to think about doing that dual French, French team. I think that they could potentially come back to that in 2023 if Ocon is still around in that kind of stable, but that remains to be seen down the road.
Okay.
Ferrari, what have you got over there for the prancing horses?
For starters, it's insane that we're talking about Ferrari this late.
I know.
This is insane. And hopefully going into our 2023 predictions, we're talking about them much higher on the grid. But this is an easy one as well. Leclerc, Sainz. I really,
Future.
Especially with Charles Leclerc there, it's going to take a lot for him to leave Ferrari. And honestly, maybe if it's more the same from this past season, maybe he ends up doing something there. But I think Leclerc's there for the long haul. And Sainz, he's a very talented driver. He's going to be a great, great challenge for Leclerc there. And when you look at the Ferrari development path, there's nobody immediately to step up into that seat. You look Giovinazzi, I don't think he's going to be a Ferrari driver. You look Mick Schumacher, he's just making his debut, and Callum Ilott is probably the third one in that pecking order, and he's not even racing in a series next year. So when you look at things, Leclerc, Sainz, that's a pretty easy one for me to keep as a driver lineup for Ferrari in 2022.
Yeah, about the same thing. Leclerc, Sainz, that's the future of that team. They're two excellent race car drivers, and I'm very, very excited to see what the potential of this duo has in store for the next 2 seasons now, with them partnering each other for at least that long of a period of time. We move on to AlphaTauri. We both have Pierre Gasly leaving the team, which means that there's at least one vacant seat over there at this Red Bull Junior team. Is there a second? We'll see. What have you got for AlphaTauri in 2022?
Well, the easy one is the first one, and that's Yuki Tsunoda. I feel very, very confident that he'll be there for his second season. I don't think he gets the call up to Red Bull, and I don't think he gets the sack after his first year either. But that second seat is a very, very interesting one, because I think it comes down to 2 drivers. And the obvious one is Alexander Albon, who is currently the Red Bull reserve driver, is not getting the same opportunity that Pierre Gasly did after being let go from the main team at Red Bull, where Gasly went back down to AlphaTauri because it happened mid-season. Alex Albon, it's happening at the end of the season, and there's no seat for him because Yuki Tsunoda is getting the call to AlphaTauri. But I don't have Alex Albon getting the second seat at AlphaTauri. I think it's just a terrible luck situation for Alex Albon there. But there's another Red Bull development driver coming up the pipeline that's equally as interesting as Yuki Tsunoda. He's making his full-time F2 season debut this year with, I think it's High Tech. I think that was announced recently. I think he's going to have a very strong season there, and he's going to get the call up after one full season in F2, similar to Tsunoda, to AlphaTauri, and that's Jüri Vips, the Estonian driver. He's been in the Red Bull program for a while now. For a while, he was the guy thought of higher than Yuki Tsunoda, but because of some things and how it went this past season, Tsunoda's the one getting the call to AlphaTauri this season. I think Vips gets that call into 2022. I think he's going to have a strong season at F2, and Red Bull then partners 2 potential future drivers at that program as well, and kind of restabilizes that Red Bull program. Keep Tsunoda and Vips at AlphaTauri for at least a couple seasons, maybe 3 or maybe even more, who knows. And then when they're officially ready, move them on up to Red Bull. So I've got Tsunoda and Vips at AlphaTauri.
I have Tsunoda and I have Alexander Albon. Okay. I just couldn't do it to him. I just don't. Yeah. I think it's going to be absolutely brutal if he does not get that seat in 2022. It would be an absolute shame if he does not get that second chance that Pierre Gasly did. And look what he's done with that second chance. I think Alexander Albon could do something equally as great as what Pierre Gasly's done. It's just a shame how everything's worked out for him over the past year and a half or so. And I hope he does get that second chance, because I do think he's deserving of it. Vips is definitely an intriguing one, though. If you're going to look at somebody for that seat, you probably look at him, just because they're not going to fill anybody else other than a Red Bull junior driver or somebody within the Red Bull stable over there for AlphaTauri for 2022 at least. So I'm going with Albon. You're going with Vips. It makes sense either way. I hope it's either one of them, to be honest. I'm hoping more so for Albon, just for his own sake, because I think he does need that second chance. But Vips would definitely be a move for the future over there for Red Bull.
Yeah, when I look at the situation, it's kind of the same thinking with Gasly, and why Gasly, we both think he moves on from AlphaTauri this year, is there's no further future at Red Bull after the way that things went at the main team. And it's not to the same extent with Alex Albon, but you look at Yuki Tsunoda coming along, you look at Jüri Vips coming down the pipeline, and realistically, what are the odds of Alex Albon getting back to the main team? I'd put them fairly low. So when I'm Red Bull, and if Jüri Vips has a season that I'm expecting of him at F2, what's better for you long term, to get the prospect that might end up being a number 2 driver for you at your main team in the future, or getting Alex Albon back in a seat for him to prove he's good again and then move to somebody else's team? So it's an unfortunate reality. If Vips finishes outside the top 5 in F2, I think that's Albon's seat. But if Vips finishes in the top 5 in F2 in his rookie season, I think there's a pretty strong chance he ends up at AlphaTauri. But that's going to be a fun storyline to follow this year, because Vips' performance is going to directly impact whether Albon gets that second chance in F1.
Yeah, for sure. It could go either way. That's a 50-50. That's a coin flip right now.
Yeah, same for me.
We'll see what happens with that entire Red Bull stable. Remember, they're not going to be with Honda anymore after this next season as well. So we'll see if that has any sort of play with the engine manufacturer, and if they want to go with some sort of nationality route for that second seat at AlphaTauri. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Is there any Estonian engine makers?
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to do a little bit more research on that if that is going to be the case. But yeah, I've got Alban, you got Yuri Vips, and we've both got Yuki Tsunoda over there at AlphaTauri in 2022. We move on to Alfa Romeo here, Kyle. An interesting one, to say the least, just based off of some rumors that have happened a little bit over the offseason, and who we've got leaving some certain teams as well. So what are you looking at for Alfa Romeo in 2022?
Well, Alfa Romeo in its current form is partially at least a Ferrari development team. It's a Ferrari team. One seat is their own choosing. The other seat is a Ferrari development driver. But this past season, a lot has been made of the fact that Renault and now Alpine put Fernando Alonso in that seat over the pipeline of drivers that they have coming up in the Renault driver junior program, whether it's Guan Yu Zhou or Christian Lundgaard, or looking down into the future, somebody like Oscar Piastri that fills a seat that a potential Renault junior could fill. And so there's an interesting rumor floating around that Alfa Romeo leaves the sport and the team becomes Sauber again. And I think that's got a lot of validity to it. When I look at the current situation in F1 and the fact that Callum Ilott didn't end up at Sauber, that's interesting to me as well. So here's what I got. I've got Alfa Romeo leaves Sauber and they become a Renault junior, essentially, team. When I look at how everything breaks down, Haas and Ferrari, they've got that. Williams and Mercedes, they've got that. Renault doesn't have that. So I think that they might jump on this opportunity with Sauber and work something there, because they've got some talented drivers coming up. As I mentioned, Guan Yu Zhou, Christian Lundgaard, and the F3 champion Oscar Piastri. Those three are all Renault drivers. And if they've only got 2 seats in F1 and it's the main team, there's not a lot for them to go to. So I'm going to say Sauber becomes a Renault junior team. And here's where it gets interesting, because I've got a full driver lineup change. I'm going to say Kimi Räikkönen retires. I'm going to say Antonio Giovinazzi becomes the Ferrari reserve driver. And so at Sauber, I've got Esteban Ocon going to that team, staying in the Renault family, essentially. So when Alonso essentially retires after 2022, which we would all anticipate, he maybe makes that jump back up to Alpine, or maybe the second driver here makes that jump. And I'm going with Christian Lundgaard. He's, I think, probably the top prospect right now in the Renault program of junior drivers. Guan Yu Zhou kind of stagnated this past season in F2, whereas Christian Lundgaard was comparable in performance. He's 2 years younger, and it was his first season in F2. There's the wild card, of course, in Oscar Piastri, who's stepping into Prima, who just won the championship with Mick Schumacher. He's going to be paired alongside Robert Schwartzman. But when I look at things here, I think Piastri saying he's going to do it in one season after just winning F3 is a lot for me. So I'm going to say Lundgaard makes a jump up to the renamed Sauber with Esteban Ocon as the new Renault team.
Okay, very similar, I have to say, Kyle. Very, very similar.
Okay.
I went with the rumor as well. I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think Ferrari needs to have 2 junior programs essentially there with Alfa Romeo.
It just makes Haas. Too much sense.
It makes exactly. Renault needs that kind of B team like Red Bull, like Mercedes has with Williams, and with like Ferrari has now, I think, with Haas come 2022 time. So for me, very similar. I've got Esteban Ocon gets the demotion from Alpine. I made that tie. It makes the most sense for him to be dropped, but stay in that Renault stable to come back to you once Fernando Alonso leaves, if they want to do that. Or if Esteban Ocon wants to leave somewhere else, he could go back to the Mercedes side of things and find something there, because he's got links basically everywhere. This guy, he's gone from every which way, it feels like, for Esteban Ocon. He can't find that stability that he's probably looking for. And I think that continues probably in 2022. So he's going to end up at Sauber. And then to partner him, I know they're wanting to go with a little bit of a junior program, but I think they're going to come back to a little bit of a familiar face with this one. I'm going to say Nico Hülkenberg makes his return to the F1 grid. I know Christian Lundgaard looks fantastic in F2. He's going to be one guy for the championship, but Hülkenberg has just been that great reserve driver for this past year. He's wanting to come back. He just hasn't found that opportunity. I think he comes back to that Renault stable, goes back to Sauber as well, a former team of his. I think there's a great storyline there, a great connection, familiar faces. It would be a great inaugural season kind of back for Sauber as well as its current form. Having a future driver there as Esteban Ocon, and then a mainstay that we all love in Nico Hülkenberg. It would be great branding, great sponsorship. It would just be a great a duo, I feel like, across the board. It should have been the duo maybe even for Renault when they were in its old state, when it was before everything that happened over there at that team. Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, I think would be a great partnership for Sauber. I think they're going to wait maybe 1 year more on someone like the F2 guys, because I don't want to rush these guys too quickly into a new generation of cars. I think Nico Hülkenberg would be a great baseline guy to try and find you something with performance, sending a rookie in there. We'll see what Haas does in terms of that for this season and how well they do. But I think it would just be a bit too much to put Ocon and then maybe someone like Lundgaard, even if Piastri turns out to be something spectacular in F2. I think it'd be just rushing them a bit too much. So I'm going to stick with Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon over there at Sauber.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got a funny feeling. I really want this German guy back on the grid, the Hulk, man. How can you not want the Hulk for your team? I don't feel confident in that one at all, but it's more of a fan favorite kind of move. I feel like if they're going to go with somebody,
mix those in too. So
yeah, I'm interested to see what happens over there with that entire duo, because it makes too much sense for them to not do this, and I hope it does come to fruition, because I don't know honestly what they're going to do if it doesn't actually happen, because I think Raikkonen is going to be departing the sport. It's just his time has come up, and there's too many young talent that is going to be pressing on him to get that last seat there over there at the newly rebranded Sauber team. So we move into the final two here, Kyle. We've got Haas and Williams. We'll start off with the newly kind of named Ferrari junior team, I guess, here with Haas F1 team. I'm going with a young lineup once again. Mick Schumacher, he's their future star there. He's going to have a pretty decent rookie season. I'd say he's going to outshine Mazepin. I hope so. At least that would be the case. But Mick Schumacher is going to be one to keep your eye on this season. And then to partner him, very similarly, I have Antonio Giovinazzi going as the reserve driver for this organization or this team, whether he goes to Ferrari, Haas, whatever it may be. But he's going to be with the Ferrari camp, but just in a reserve driver role. And to partner Mick Schumacher, I'm going with Callum Ilott. There's no way they could keep him on the sidelines for another season. It would just be a disservice to the young guy. He did everything right in F2, just didn't quite get the shot. Mazepin brings in a lot of funding. I understand that. This is probably more of a biased move, honestly. I just don't want him in the sport for 2022. I want Callum Ilott in there. It's widely known across the media that this isn't a popular move, what Haas did with putting Mazepin in there, and I hope that they recognize that Mazepin maybe does something this season. I hope that doesn't happen, obviously. Hopefully he turns it around in terms of his actions on and off the track, but I hope Callum Ilott gets this shot, and this seems like the most likely place for him to land if he's going to be landing anywhere in on the F1 grid. Very similar to Giovinazzi taking that year off, didn't quite get that shot in Formula One, now gets that opportunity here and gets the second Haas seat.
Yeah, this is one that I find very interesting, because if they do become that single Ferrari development team, Mick Schumacher's staying no matter what. But if they become that Ferrari development team, is there enough money that comes with that where he can replace Mazepin in that second seat, even though he does have a second year on that contract, and replace him with somebody like Ilott? That's the big question for me, because I want to put Ilott. There's also Robert Schwartzman coming up, who could very easily go out and win F2. And then where does he go? Like, there's a lot of Ferrari guys coming up. I'm still going to stay with Mazepin in that second seat just because of the money he brings. He's already got the contract in place. I really hope that's not the case. I would love to see the guy kick to the curb, held mid-season, and put Ilott in the seat or something. I just don't think I'm trying to think with my brain and not my heart here, essentially. And if Haas is fighting through it already and they haven't figured out something to get rid of him already, I feel like they might be in it for the long haul. I'm hoping that things might change if they become the single Ferrari development team, but it's Formula One, money talks. We've seen that time and time again, so yes. I'm not holding out hope.
Yeah, I you know, I went with my heart. You went with your head. Like I think either way, I don't know. Just
we might
frustrating.
have to pop some champagne or something if Mazepin is out. That's all I'm going to say.
We pop in a lot of champagne if some things go right over this next season. Hopefully I'm back in Toronto. Hopefully there's a lot of different things that happen over this next year. But Haas is definitely an interesting storyline. A lot of these backmarker teams are going to be so integral to the silly season stuff that they're going to be doing over there for 2022. These prospects, I mean, I just don't know where all these young guys are going to go.
So many young guys.
Because you've got young guys already that are prominent. Lando Norris. I mean, Carlos Sainz isn't going to go anywhere. George Russell. Max Verstappen. You know, Daniel Ricciardo. I don't see him going anywhere really anytime soon. Esteban Ocon. Like, you've got some really talented young guys. And you're going to have to kick some of these guys that are veterans of the sport, probably deserving of a seat. But if they want these younger faces, I mean, this is just going to get nuts, even more crazy over the next 2, 3, 4 years as more and more of these young guys just prove themselves in the lower series. So the talent never stops in motorsports. And I think that's the revolving door that we keep on finding ourselves in. Feels like the sweet life of Zach and Cody when they keep on going around in the revolving door at the entrance. We just keep on coming back to it. It just never stops turning. But we're at the end here, Kyle. One last team for the 2022 driver predictions, and that is with Williams, the Mercedes B team. A lot of different things could go on here. We've got George Russell both moving up to Mercedes to take over for Valtteri Bottas. So that leaves one vacant seat open. Is there potentially two here? What do you have for the final team for the 2022 F1 grid?
I'll start by saying something that I wanted to fit in here. If money wasn't a thing and Williams didn't need some extra funding or anything like that, I really, really, really wanted to toss Esteban Ocon here.
Okay.
Because of the Mercedes ties. I really wanted to do it.
I was really, really close. Because if he gets kicked out of Renault, maybe he says, I'm done. I don't want to be with Renault. And he comes here. I think that is definitely a possibility. But I was very
And then you eye up that Mercedes seat down the road or something like that. Like
I don't know. Exactly.
So I really wanted to do that, but I couldn't make it work because of the money that's involved.
It does freak me out how like-minded we are on some of these things, and we just are like, nope, we can't do it. No.
So I think there's one that makes a lot of sense for everybody involved. When you look at Russell going up to Mercedes, it leaves Bottas out of a seat. He used to be at Williams. You look at going forwards, it's under different ownership. In 2022, they're going to be taking more parts from Mercedes. They're going to be straying away from that kind of, it's only us, we're going to do our own things. It's not going to be one of these works teams or anything like that. So I think Bottas returns to Williams. I think he stays on the F1 grid. He stays in that Mercedes camp kind of, but he goes back to Williams and he's going to help that team progress back up the grid, because we saw in his Williams days, he was very strong there. It's been at Mercedes where he hasn't been able to reach that next level. But I think going back down to Williams, I think that's more of the team that fits where he's at essentially in his career. He can be the clear number one. He doesn't have to worry about challenging with a Lewis Hamilton. And he can help that team develop back. And partnering him, I have Nicholas Latifi staying there because money talks. And I really wanted to have Bottas and Ocon there and then have them battle it out for like a Mercedes seat down the road when Hamilton retires. But I couldn't quite make it work because of the money, because that is quite the expensive driver pairing to have Bottas and Ocon. So I went Bottas, Latifi. And I feel like if when Russell gets the call up, I feel like that's the most likely scenario. If Ocon decides to not stay in the Renault camp, if the Sauber thing doesn't happen, I could easily see him going to Williams. If Bottas doesn't want to go down to Williams, or if he leaves the sport entirely, something like that, some different situations could happen here. But I feel fairly confident in that pair of moves there with Mercedes and Williams.
Yeah, I think they're just doing a trade, to be honest. Russell for Bottas, and then I have the same thing. I think Latifi, like you said, money talks, and this is a very big factor in how a lot of these guys get their rides. Not to say that talent isn't a huge part of it as well, but money is an excruciating factor.
Yeah, like Latifi finished second in F2, and it was, I think, his third or fourth year in the championship. So it's not like it was one of these first year sensations or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he's a decent driver. He brings a lot of money. As long as he's not doing stupid stuff, I think it's perfectly fine. Maybe he develops the season, or maybe he tanks the season and they have to go somewhere else. But when you look at the Mercedes pipeline, there's not that next prospect that really needs to make that jump up.
Exactly.
I'd love to see something like Jamie Chadwick or something like that with the former ties that they have, but I just don't think that's realistic at this point. Bottas Latifi seems like the safe pick there.
I will say I am more confident in the Bottas pick than Latifi, because they could just go off the board with trying to get Latifi out of there.
Or there's somebody else that has money.
Exactly. But I think Bottas going back down to Williams makes the most sense. He stays in the Mercedes camp if he ever gets that call back up. Exactly. It's not where you want to be, of course. He'd want to be up there with Mercedes, but he just hasn't done enough. Like, we've talked about that consistently on this show. And George Russell is the next big thing in Formula One. Let's be honest. I mean, this kid is going to be a superstar in a matter of years. It's not going to take long for him to reach the heights that we expect.
Hopefully, too, based off of our count.
Exactly. Very similar kind of lineups here for us, Kyle, across the board.
Yeah.
Latifi and Bottas for myself there. So out of a ride in 2022, I've got Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, and Mazepin. Those are my three that I think are going to be on the way out. Then the rest kind of stays internal. I don't see any F2 guys coming up for myself, at least, for 2022. I think it would be a bit of a rush to maybe put them up, but there always is a prospect or two that makes their way up into Formula One. I just think that we've had such a prospect craze the past couple of seasons that we may take a step back from that and just enjoy what we have on the current grid itself. Maybe the next big thing in F2 is not always the right choice. I mean, look at Nick DeVries. He didn't get the call up and he won the F2 championship. Like, you can't have every single person make their way up to Formula One. It's just not realistic. So I went with more of an internal way. I think Nico Hülkenberg was more of a fan favorite move, but I could totally see Christian Lundgaard going in there for Sauber or whatever they decide to do with that team. If they stay with Alfa Romeo, who knows?
If it stays with Alfa Romeo, maybe we see Giovinazzi and Islet there, Schwartzman and Islet. Like, there's a lot of different. I think the Alfa Romeo Sauber thing is the big thing coming into this year. If Alfa Romeo stays, if they stay with Ferrari, and then if they leave, the ramifications of that, because that can impact 2, 3, 4 different names here. In silly season and in different prospects projections to F1.
Yeah, if Alfa Romeo stays, you've got maybe Ilott and Giovinazzi, like you said, or Ilott and Schwartzman, whatever they decide to do. But then, Esteban Ocon maybe out of a ride. Then you look at the Williams thing. Maybe that's the opportunity that he's looking for.
And then that's the route.
There's a total different chain of things that could happen here, but they all have different things that connect them to each place. It's not all over the place. I feel like this upcoming season, a lot of it is kind of staying pat, but these drivers that could be on the move, they make sense in going to certain destinations more than others. And we'll see how right or how wrong we are. We will be revisiting this as the season goes along, but very similar on the Formula One side of things, more so than the NASCAR side of things. But we have a lot of different similarities, a lot of
there's a lot more options on the NASCAR side too. So
very, very true. But we're very like-minded with this stuff, and it does really blow my mind. It is scary. But that does it for the silly season predictions on NASCAR and Formula One. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today's episode, Kyle?
Oh, I can't wait to see how wrong we are. If I think about the way that my head was at 1 year ago in terms of silly season stuff and where it's all played out 1 year later, pretty crazy. So 1 year ago, we were thinking it was like a sure thing that Keselowski was out at Penske, and Kyle Larson and where he would go. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
A year, it's 365 days is literally nothing. It feels like it's just so much can happen in a year. I mean, it's been as clear as any this past year what can happen in a year. I'm happy that we got to do this, though. It was a fun episode.
This was fun.
This is always a great thing to predict and see how right or how wrong you are. It just it's all for fun and games, and we'll see who's more right, who's more wrong, if we're all wrong, and which could be entirely true. But we've got a fun rest of the week in store. We've got the Rolex 24 preview coming up later on this week, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag, at The Green Flag Pod on Twitter as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it as well. All the links to the social channels will be in the description. For this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you later this week to preview the Rolex 24.